6 months after returning from the Kepler 442 system, Hana Kim stood in front of a classroom filled with eager students. But this was not the same classroom where aliens had laughed at her paper maps. This was her own classroom at the newly established Institute for Traditional Navigation. The students were both human and alien. Zentrans sat next to Aquarians, learning to use simple compasses and paper charts. Rigelians practiced basic trigonometry alongside human cadets. Even proud Altarians had come to learn what they now called human navigation methods. The first rule of traditional navigation, Hana said to her class, is that your eyes are your most important instrument. Machines can lie to you, but careful observation rarely does. She held up a sheet of paper and a pencil. These tools helped humans explore their oceans for thousands of years before they went to space. They are simple, reliable, and they work in any environment. One of her students, a young Zentran named Crix, raised his hand. Professor Kim, why did our ancestors abandon these methods when we developed quantum technology? Because newer often seems better, Hana replied. But the keepers learned that more advanced is not always more reliable. Sometimes simple solutions are the strongest ones. The discovery in Kepler 442 had changed everything. The Galactic Council now knew that there were ancient defensive systems scattered throughout unexplored space, systems that could only be navigated using basic methods. Humans had suddenly become the most valuable explorers in the galaxy. Military applications followed quickly. Human naval forces could operate effectively in regions where alien fleets with advanced technology became lost and helpless. The galaxy's balance of power shifted almost overnight. But Hana was not interested in military advantages. She wanted to teach the wisdom her grandfather had given her. She wanted to show others that simple tools and careful observation were valuable skills that should never be forgotten. Kyle, the Zentran student who had once mocked her paper maps, was now one of her teaching assistants. He had discovered that he enjoyed the precision and patience required for traditional navigation. Professor Kim, he said after class one day, I have been thinking about what we learned from the Keepers. What is that? Hana asked. They were the most advanced civilization in the galaxy, but they survived by going back to basics when they needed to, Kyle said. Maybe advancement is not about abandoning old methods. Maybe it is about knowing when to use them. Hana smiled. My grandfather would have liked that idea. The Institute had become famous throughout the galaxy. Students came from dozens of different species to learn traditional navigation. They learned to use star positions for direction, to calculate distances with simple geometry, and to read gravitational effects through careful observation. Dr. Elena Yoon, now the Institute's chief researcher, had made another important discovery. We have found evidence of 17 more Keeper defensive systems in unexplored regions, she reported to Hana. The Galactic Council wants to send exploration teams to all of them. And they want human navigators to guide those teams? Hana asked. Not just human navigators, Dr. Yoon said. They want navigators trained in your methods, regardless of species. Aliens who have learned traditional techniques work just as well in Keeper systems. This made Hana happy. Her goal had never been to prove that humans were superior. She wanted to show that simple methods had value for everyone. Captain Rio Choi, who had been promoted after the Kepler 442 mission, visited the Institute regularly. He was now in charge of training Galactic Navy officers in traditional navigation. Your students are impressive, he told Hana during one of his visits. We just completed exercises where mixed human-alien crews navigated through simulated Keeper mazes. The teams that used your methods performed better than any previous navigation classes. Because they learned to trust their observations instead of just trusting their machines, Hana said. The success stories kept coming. Exploration teams guided by Institute graduates had successfully mapped 3 more Keeper systems. Each discovery revealed new information about the ancient civilization and their 3-million-year war with the Devourers. But perhaps the most important success was happening in Hana's own classroom. She watched as alien students who had grown up depending entirely on advanced technology learned to navigate using nothing but paper, pencils, and mathematics. "It is harder than using quantum scanners," admitted Nira, the Aquarian student who had once mocked Hana's methods. "But it is also more satisfying. When I calculate a position by hand and then confirm it with observations, I feel like I truly understand where I am." "That understanding is what my grandfather called real navigation," Hana said. "Anyone can read numbers from a computer screen, but a real navigator can find their way using whatever tools are available." On graduation day, Hana stood before her, first class of certified traditional navigators. They came from 7 different species, but they all shared the same skills now. They could navigate by starlight, calculate orbits with paper and pencil, and read gravitational patterns through careful observation. "You are now qualified to guide ships through the most challenging regions of space," she told them. "But more importantly, you understand that reliable navigation comes from knowledge and observation, not just from advanced equipment." She held up a simple paper map, just as she had done in Professor Vex's class a year earlier. But now, instead of laughter, the gesture was met with respectful attention. "Your ancestors navigated by stars long before computers existed," Hana said. "The Keepers navigated through 3-dimensional space using principles that are still true today. Sometimes the oldest paths are the truest ones." After the ceremony, Hana walked to her office. The walls were covered with maps, just like her grandfather's workshop had been. Some were her own hand-drawn charts of the Kepler systems. Others were practice exercises from her students. All of them represented the same thing: the power of human observation and simple mathematics. On her desk was a letter from the Galactic Council. They were offering her the position of Director of Galactic Navigation, with authority over all exploration missions in Keeper territories. It was the most important navigation position in known space. Hana set the letter aside without reading it completely. She had more important work to do. Tomorrow, a new class of students would arrive at the Institute. Some would be humans who had grown up with advanced technology and needed to learn simple methods. Others would be aliens who had never used paper and pencils to navigate. All of them would learn that the best navigation tools are not always the most advanced ones. They would discover that careful observation and basic mathematics can accomplish things that quantum computers cannot. They would learn the lesson that her grandfather had taught her and that the Keepers had known 3 million years ago. The most reliable path through any challenge is often the simplest one. As evening fell, Hana pulled out a fresh sheet of paper and began planning lessons for her new students. Outside her window, the stars shone with the same light that had guided navigators for millions of years. Her grandfather had been right. The best map is always drawn by someone who takes the time to really look. And now, thanks to a girl who had been laughed at for bringing paper to a space navigation class, the entire galaxy was learning to look again. Using Hana's paper maps as their only reliable navigation system, the rescue operations in Kepler 442 became completely successful. Every stranded team was brought back safely to the Endeavor. The alien students watched in amazement as their most advanced technology was replaced by hand-drawn charts and simple mathematics. Kyle, the Zentran student who had mocked Hana's methods, approached her in the ship's dining hall. He looked embarrassed and humbled. "Miss Kim," he said quietly, "I wanted to apologize for laughing at your equipment. Your paper chart saved my team when our neural interfaces failed." "Thank you," Hana said, "but you do not need to apologize. You could not have known that simple methods would work better than advanced technology." "How did you know?" Kyle asked. Hana thought for a moment. "My grandfather taught me to always ask questions. When everyone says something is impossible, ask why. When technology fails, ask what you can use instead." Other alien students had gathered around to listen. They were all curious about how a human with paper and pencils had succeeded where their quantum computers failed. The gravitational maze in this system is designed to confuse electronic brains, Hana explained, but it cannot confuse a human brain that uses basic observation and math. Dr. Elena Yoon joined the group. She had been studying Hana's charts for days and had made an incredible discovery. "Miss Kim," Dr. Yoon said, "I have been analyzing your complete survey data with Captain Choi. We found something that will change how the galaxy understands ancient civilizations." She activated a portable display and showed images from the fourth planet's surface. The images were grainy because they had to be taken with simple optical cameras, but they clearly showed massive ruins. These cities are over 3 million years old, Dr. Yoon announced, but they show technology that is more advanced than anything we have today. Advanced enough to build a system-wide gravitational defense network. The alien students looked shocked. Most galactic civilizations believed that advanced technology was a recent development. But if they were so advanced, what happened to them? Asked Nira, one of the Aquarian students. Dr. Yoon and Captain Choi exchanged looks. "We think they faced an enemy with even more advanced technology, so they built a defense that would neutralize technological advantages. The gravitational maze makes all advanced technology unreliable," Captain Choi explained. "Quantum weapons would not work properly. Electronic navigation fails. Even advanced life support systems malfunction." Hana added her own observations. "But basic technology still works. Simple engines, optical instruments, mechanical tools. A civilization using basic methods could survive here while high-tech enemies could not. So they turned their technological advancement into a disadvantage for their enemies," Dr. Yoon said. "It is brilliant military strategy." Professor Vex, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. "This discovery will send shockwaves through the Galactic Council. It proves that there were advanced civilizations millions of years before we thought possible. More importantly," Captain Choi said, "it shows that humans have a unique advantage in situations like this. Human civilization never completely abandoned basic methods." This was true. While alien civilizations had developed incredibly advanced technology, they had forgotten simpler approaches. They depended entirely on computers, quantum scanners, and neural interfaces. Humans, however, still taught traditional navigation in their schools. They still used paper maps for backup systems. Human explorers carried simple instruments alongside their advanced equipment. "My grandfather always said that progress means adding new tools, not throwing away old ones," Hana said. Over the following days, Hana worked with Dr. Yoon and Captain Choi to create detailed maps of the entire Kepler 442 system. Using her hand-drawn charts, they guided exploration teams to the ancient ruins on the fourth planet. The ruins were incredible. Cities that stretched for hundreds of kilometers, filled with technology that was both incredibly advanced and strangely simple. The builders had used principles that modern science was just beginning to understand. "Look at this," Dr. Yoon said as they explored one of the ancient buildings. They built quantum computers using purely mechanical components, no electronics at all. They learned to make advanced technology that could not be disrupted by their own defense system, Hana realized. The exploration teams found libraries filled with information about the ancient civilization. The aliens who had lived there called themselves the Keepers. They had been peaceful explorers and scientists who mapped the galaxy 3 million years ago, but they had encountered another species called the Devourers, who used incredibly advanced technology to destroy entire civilizations. The Devourers had quantum weapons that could destroy planets and electronic viruses that could take control of any computer system. The Keepers realized they could not fight the Devourers using similar technology. Instead, they built defensive systems that made advanced technology unreliable. Their gravitational mazes forced all battles back to basic methods. "It worked," Captain Choi said as he read the ancient records. "The Devourers could not use their advanced weapons in Keeper space. Their electronic systems failed. Their quantum computers produced wrong data." "But what happened to both civilizations?" asked Professor Vex. Dr. Yoon found the answer in the final records. The war lasted for thousands of years. Both species exhausted themselves fighting. The keepers died out, but they left their defensive systems active to protect future civilizations. So this system has been protecting the galaxy for 3 million years, Hana said, waiting for someone who could understand what they built. The implications were staggering. The Galactic Council had always assumed that advanced technology was always superior to simple methods. But the Keepers had proven that sometimes simpler approaches were more reliable. News of the discovery spread quickly through the galaxy. Human exploration methods suddenly became very interesting to alien civilizations. If there were other defensive systems in unexplored space, humans might be the only species that could navigate them safely. Professor Vex called a meeting of all students and teachers aboard the Endeavor. This expedition has made the most important archaeological discovery in galactic history, he announced, and it was accomplished by a human student using methods that many of us considered primitive. He looked directly at Hana. Miss Kim, your grandfather would be very proud of what you have accomplished. Hana smiled, but she felt humble rather than proud. My grandfather always said that the best navigator is not the one with the most advanced equipment. The best navigator is the one who can find the way home no matter what tools they have available. The Keepers understood that wisdom 3 million years ago, Dr. Yoon added. They built their defenses to reward careful observation and basic mathematics over technological complexity. As the Endeavor prepared to leave the Kepler 442 system, Hana looked out at the ancient ruins one last time. The Keepers had been gone for millions of years, but their lesson lived on. Sometimes the oldest methods are the most reliable. Sometimes simple tools work better than complex machines, and sometimes the best way forward is to remember what worked in the past. Her grandfather had known these truths. The Keepers had known them too. Now it was Hana's turn to share this wisdom with the galaxy. The situation in the Kepler 442 system went from bad to terrible in just 2 days. Hana sat in the conference room aboard the Endeavor, watching Professor Vex and the other teachers try to understand what was happening to their advanced technology. 17. Teams have now lost primary navigation systems, reported Dr. Elena Yoon. Quantum scanners are producing random data. Neural interfaces are causing headaches in Zentran students. Even our basic communication equipment is starting to fail. Captain Ryo Choi looked worried as he studied the reports. The Endeavor's main computers are also showing problems. Our stellar navigation system crashed twice yesterday. We barely managed to maintain our position in the system. How is this possible? Asked Professor Vex. Our technology is designed to handle any known form of interference. Maybe this is not a known form of interference, suggested Dr. Yoon. She looked at Hana, who was sitting quietly at the end of the table. Miss Kim's paper charts are the only navigation tools that are working reliably in this system. All eyes turned to Hana. She felt uncomfortable being the center of attention, especially when some of the alien teachers looked at her with suspicion. Miss Kim, Professor Vex said, please explain how your primitive methods are succeeding where our advanced technology fails. Hana stood up and walked to a large display screen. She had brought several of her hand-drawn charts with her. May I show you what I have discovered? Professor Vex nodded, and Hana placed her largest chart on the display table. The paper showed the entire Kepler 442 system with incredible detail. Planets, asteroids, and gravitational flows were all marked with careful precision. This system is not natural, Hana said simply. The room fell silent. Professor Vex leaned forward. What do you mean? The gravitational patterns form a maze, Hana explained. Look at how they connect. She traced paths on her chart with her finger. These are not random anomalies. Someone built this. Dr. Yoon studied the charts more carefully. Built what? A defense system, Hana said. The gravitational flows are designed to confuse and disable advanced technology. Electronic equipment gets wrong information. Quantum scanners see false. Data, neural interfaces overload. Captain Choi looked skeptical. But your paper charts work fine? Yes, because they do not depend on electronic systems. I use direct observation and basic math. The defense system cannot fool my eyes or change mathematical laws. An alien teacher, a Rigelian named Dr. Crix, spoke up. You are suggesting that an ancient civilization built a maze in space to stop advanced technology? Yes, Hana said confidently. And I think I know why. She pulled out another chart that showed the inner part of the system. Look at the fourth planet. My observations show ruins on its surface, large cities that are millions of years old. Professor Vex activated a holographic scanner to look at the fourth planet. The scanner immediately started producing error messages and contradictory data. Your scanner cannot see the ruins because the defense system is hiding them, Hana said. But I can see them clearly with my grandfather's telescope. Dr. Yoon was starting to understand. So this ancient civilization faced enemies with advanced technology. They built a defense system that would make high-tech weapons and scanners useless. But simple methods would still work, Hana added. Someone using basic navigation and observation could pass through safely. The maze only affects complex electronic systems. Captain Choi was beginning to look excited rather than worried. This means humans have an advantage here. Our simple technology can operate where alien systems fail. That is exactly right, Hana said. My grandfather always said that the most advanced tool is not always the best tool. Sometimes you need something simple and reliable. Professor Vex was studying Hana's charts with growing amazement. Miss Kim, how detailed are your maps of this defense system? Very detailed, she replied. I have mapped safe paths through the entire system. I know where the gravitational traps are and how to avoid them. I can guide any ship safely to any destination. As if to prove her point, alarms began sounding throughout the Endeavor. Captain Choi's communication device activated with an urgent message. Bridge to Captain Choi. Our navigation computers have completely failed. We are drifting off course and cannot correct our position. We need immediate assistance. Captain Choi looked at Hana. Can you guide us to a safe position? Hana nodded. Yes, but you must ignore your computer readings completely. Your instruments will tell you to go in the wrong direction. Do it, Captain Choi ordered. For the next 2 hours, Hana guided the massive Endeavor through the gravitational maze using only her paper charts. She gave navigation orders based on visual landmarks and mathematical calculations. The ship's computers protested every move, but her directions proved perfect. When they reached a stable position, Captain Choi addressed the entire teaching staff. From now on, Miss Kim is our chief navigator in this system. All ship movements will be based on her charts. Professor Vex looked embarrassed but impressed. Miss Kim, I owe you an apology. I thought your methods were outdated and useless. They are not outdated, Hana said. They are tested. My grandfather used these same methods for 50 years without a single navigation error. Dr. Yoon had been analyzing Hana's discovery. The implications of this are enormous. If humans can navigate where alien technology fails, it changes everything about how we see ourselves in the galaxy. What do you mean? Asked Professor Vex. Think about it, Dr. Yoon explained. Every advanced civilization depends on complex technology. But what happens when that technology encounters something it cannot handle? They become helpless. But humans still remember simple methods, Captain Choi added. We never completely gave up basic navigation and observation skills, Hana smiled. My grandfather used to say that the galaxy is a big place with many surprises. The civilization that built this defense system knew that too. They prepared for enemies with better technology by making technology itself the weakness. Professor Vex was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. Miss Kim, would you be willing to teach our alien students your navigation methods? Of course, Hana replied. My grandfather always said that knowledge should be shared. That is how we all become better navigators. As the meeting ended, Hana looked out the window at the strange star system around them. Her paper charts had not only solved the navigation crisis, they had revealed something amazing about the galaxy's past. An ancient civilization had built the ultimate defense against advanced technology. And now, millions of years later, a human student with paper and pencils had unlocked their secret. 3 weeks into the mapping project, the problems with alien technology became serious. Hana listened to the emergency reports coming over the communication system while she worked on her charts. Zentran Team 7 to Endeavor. Kyle's voice crackled through static. We have lost another probe. That makes 6 probes gone in 2 days. Our quantum scanner is showing readings that make no sense. Aquarian Team 3 reporting, came another voice. Our neural interface network has completely shut down. We cannot connect to any of our scanning equipment. Request immediate technical support. Professor Vex's voice responded from the main ship. All teams experiencing technical difficulties should return to Endeavor for equipment repairs. We will send replacement scanners to your sectors, but the replacement equipment failed just as quickly as the original devices. Teams that had spent weeks setting up complex scanning networks watched their expensive technology break down or produce useless data. Hana continued her work without any problems. Her paper did not malfunction. Her pencils did not produce error messages. Her grandfather's compass continued to point toward magnetic north, just as it had for 50 years. She had now filled over 100 sheets of paper with measurements and calculations. The walls of her space station were covered with hand-drawn charts connected by colored strings that showed relationships between different areas of space. Her maps were becoming incredibly detailed. She could track the movement of individual asteroids and predict exactly where they would be at any given time. She had identified 17 different gravitational flows that affected objects in her sector. Most importantly, she had confirmed her suspicion that these were not natural phenomena. The gravitational patterns formed a 3-dimensional maze. The paths through space were like invisible hallways and walls. Some routes were safe for spacecraft to travel. Others would pull ships off course or damage their equipment. Dr. Elena Yoon, the ship's chief scientist, came to visit Hana's station during the 4th week. She was also Korean human and had heard about the student who was mapping space with paper and pencils. Miss Kim, Dr. Yoon said as she entered the station. I came to check on your progress and see if you needed any assistance. She stopped talking when she saw Hana's work. The walls were covered with the most detailed star charts she had ever seen. Every planet, asteroid, and gravitational field was mapped with incredible precision. The hand-drawn diagrams showed relationships and patterns that their best computer models had missed. How did you create these? Dr. Yoon asked in amazement. Hana looked up from her latest calculations. I watch and measure. Then I use math to understand what I see. But our quantum scanners cannot detect half of what you have mapped here, Dr. Yoon said. How are you seeing things that our instruments miss? Hana put down her pencil. My grandfather taught me that machines look for what they expect to find. If something does not match their programming, they ignore it or call it an error. But humans can see patterns that machines cannot understand. Dr. Yoon studied the charts more carefully. These gravitational flows, they are not random, are they? No, Hana said. They follow rules, like water flowing through a pipe system, but in 3 dimensions. There are channels where it is safe to travel and barriers that will push you away. This explains why our equipment keeps failing, Dr. Yoon realized. The gravitational effects are interfering with electronic systems, but only in certain areas. Yes, and if you know where the interference zones are, you can avoid them, Hana said. Dr. Yoon was about to respond when emergency alarms began sounding throughout the space station. The communication system activated with an urgent message from the Endeavor. All stations, this is Captain Choi. We have a serious emergency. Rigelian Team 5 has lost all navigation capability and is drifting toward a dangerous asteroid field. Aquarian Team 3 has also lost contact with us completely. We are launching immediate rescue operations. Through her station windows, Hana could see distant flashes of light where rescue shuttles were trying to reach the stranded teams. But the rescue attempts were also having problems. "Rescue Shuttle Alpha to Endeavor," came a stressed voice. "Our navigation computers are giving us wrong directions. We cannot locate the Rigelian team. Our instruments say they are in 3 different places at the same time." Dr. Yoon looked at Hana's charts, then at the emergency situation developing outside. "Miss Kim, do your maps show safe paths to where those teams are located?" Hana quickly pulled out charts of the sectors where teams were in trouble. Her hand-drawn maps showed exactly where the stranded spacecraft were and the gravitational currents that were pulling them toward danger. "Yes," she said, "I can see safe routes to reach them, but the rescue shuttles would have to ignore their navigation computers and follow my directions exactly." Dr. Yoon activated her communication device. "Dr. Yoon to Captain Choi. I am at Miss Kim's station in Sector 7. She has detailed charts that show safe navigation paths to the stranded teams." "Did you say charts made with paper and pencils?" Captain Choi asked. "Yes, sir. And they are more accurate than anything our computers have produced." There was a long pause. Finally, Captain Choi responded. "Can she guide our rescue shuttles to the stranded teams?" Hana looked at Dr. Yoon and nodded. "I can do it. Send her navigation data to Rescue Shuttle Alpha immediately," Captain Choi ordered. Hana quickly wrote down precise coordinates and directions based on her charts. She included warnings about gravitational currents and areas where electronic equipment would malfunction. Dr. Yoon transmitted the information to the rescue shuttle. Within minutes, they received a response. "Shuttle Alpha to Endeavor. Following the paper chart directions now. Our computers say we are going the wrong way, but we are trusting the human navigator." Hana tracked the rescue shuttle's progress on her charts. She had predicted exactly how the gravitational flows would affect its course. When the shuttle reported its position every few minutes, it matched her calculations perfectly. "Shuttle Alpha has reached Rigelian Team 5, came the excited report. "The paper charts were completely accurate. We are beginning rescue operations now." Similar success followed with other rescue missions. By using Hana's hand-drawn maps, rescue shuttles reached all the stranded teams safely. The expensive alien technology had failed, but paper and pencils had guided everyone home. Professor Vex's voice came over the communication system. "Miss Kim, please report to the Endeavor immediately. We need to discuss your mapping methods with the entire teaching staff." Dr. Yoon smiled at Hana. "I think your project grade is going to be very good." The Academy's exploration ship Endeavor was massive. It carried 200 students and 50 teachers through space toward the Kepler 442 system. The journey took 3 days, and during that time, Hana watched her classmates prepare their advanced equipment. In the main cargo bay, teams of aliens set up quantum scanners that were bigger than cars. The Zentran team led by Kale had brought a neural mapping network that could connect directly to their brains. The Aquarian students assembled underwater-style probe systems that could work in any environment. Hana sat quietly in a corner with her leather bag. She had brought only basic supplies: paper, pencils, her grandfather's compass, a simple telescope, and a handheld calculator. Compared to the alien technology around her, her equipment looked like toys. "Look at the human," Kale said loudly to his teammates. "She brought crayons to map a star system." His friends laughed. One of them, a tall Zentran named Vorth, walked over to Hana. "Are you sure you did not mean to sign up for art class instead?" he asked. Hana looked up from her preparation. "I'm sure this is the right class," she said calmly. "But how will you measure gravitational fields with paper?" Vorth asked. "How will you detect quantum fluctuations with a pencil?" "I will use math," Hana replied, "and observation." The aliens laughed harder. They could not understand how anyone could work without computers and sensors. To them, Hana looked like someone trying to build a spaceship with wooden blocks. Captain Ryo Choi, a Korean human officer, was walking through the cargo bay checking on student preparations. He stopped when he saw Hana's simple equipment. "Miss Kim," he said, "are you certain you have everything you need? The Academy Supply Office has modern scanning equipment available." "Thank you, Captain," Hana said, "but I have what I need." Captain Choi looked doubtful, but he nodded and moved on. Hana could see he thought she was making a mistake. When the Endeavour reached the Kepler 442 system, Professor Vex announced the team assignments over the ship's communication system. Each team would take a small shuttle to their assigned sector and work there for 6 weeks. "Remember," the professor said, "this system has unusual gravitational properties. Your electronic equipment may not work normally. Be prepared for technical difficulties." The teams began loading their equipment onto shuttles. Hana watched as the aliens carried their massive scanners and computer systems. Some teams needed 3 shuttles just for their equipment. Hana boarded her assigned shuttle with just her leather bag. The shuttle pilot, a human woman named Lieutenant Dana Lee, looked surprised. "Where's the rest of your equipment?" Lieutenant Lee asked. "This is all of it," Hana said, showing her bag. Lieutenant Lee stared at her for a moment, then shook her head. "Well, it is your project, but I hope you know what you are doing." The shuttle carried Hana to Sector 7, a region of space near the system's 4th planet. As they approached, Lieutenant Lee frowned at her instrument panel. "That is strange," she said. "My navigation computer is giving me wrong readings. The gravitational measurements keep changing." "Maybe the gravitational anomalies are interfering with your electronics," Hana suggested. "Maybe," Lieutenant Lee said. "But these computers are supposed to handle any kind of interference." They reached the coordinates for Sector 7, and Lieutenant Lee deployed a small space station where Hana could live and work. The station had basic life support, food supplies, and communication equipment. "I will check on you in 1 week," Lieutenant Lee said before she left. "Try not to get lost out here with just paper and pencils." After the shuttle departed, Hana was alone in space with her assigned sector to map. She set up her equipment in the station's observation dome, which had large windows facing in all directions. First, she used her grandfather's telescope to study the area around her. She could see the system's main star, several planets, and what looked like asteroid fields. But her grandfather had taught her to look for more than just the obvious things. She spent the first day just watching and taking notes. She wrote down the positions of planets and asteroids at different times. She noticed how they moved in relation to each other. She began to see patterns that were not obvious at first glance. On the second day, she started making measurements. Using her compass and basic trigonometry, she calculated the distances between objects. She measured angles and recorded how they changed over time. Every measurement went onto paper in neat, careful handwriting. Meanwhile, she could hear radio chatter from other teams on the communication system. The aliens were having problems with their equipment. "Our quantum scanner is producing impossible readings," Kyle reported to Professor Vex. "It says there is a planet where our visual scans show empty space. Our probe network keeps losing contact with individual units," reported the Aquarian team leader. "The probes launch normally, but then disappear from our sensors." "This is normal in regions with gravitational anomalies," Professor Vex replied. "Adjust your equipment settings and continue working." But Hana noticed that the equipment problems were getting worse, not better. By the end of her first week, several teams had lost expensive probes and scanners to what they called sensor malfunctions. Her work, however, was proceeding smoothly. Without electronic equipment to malfunction, she had no technical problems. She just watched, measured, and calculated. Slowly, a detailed picture of Sector 7 was taking shape on her paper charts. She discovered that the asteroids in her sector moved in very specific patterns. They were not random rocks floating in space. They seemed to follow invisible paths, like cars on highways she could not see. The gravitational effects were also more complex than the initial reports suggested. Instead of simple anomalies, Hana began to see that there were layers of gravitational influence affecting everything in the sector. Some were strong, others were subtle, but they all worked together in ways that reminded her of something. It reminded her of a maze. Her grandfather had once shown her an old book about hedge mazes in Earth gardens. The paths seemed random from ground level, but from above, you could see the pattern. The gravitational effects in Sector 7 felt similar. There was a design to them, but you had to step back and look at the whole picture to see it. By the end of her second week, Hana had filled dozens of sheets of paper with measurements, calculations, and hand-drawn charts. Her work covered the walls of her small station. To anyone else, it might have looked like the scribbles of someone who was lost and confused. But Hana knew she was finding something important, something the alien scanning equipment could not detect because it was too busy looking at individual data points to see the larger pattern. She was mapping more than just planets and asteroids. She was mapping the hidden structure of space itself. The morning bells rang across the Galactic Navigation Academy as students hurried to their classes. Hana Kim walked slowly through the crystal corridors, carrying an old leather bag that looked strange among all the glowing devices her classmates held. The bag had belonged to her grandfather, and it smelled like old paper and pencil shavings. She entered the advanced stellar cartography classroom and found her usual seat in the back row. Around her, alien students were already setting up their equipment. Blue-skinned Altarians activated floating hologram projectors. The tall Zentrans plugged neural cables into their heads to connect with quantum computers. Aquarian students with their tentacle arms operated multiple scanning devices at once. Hana quietly opened her leather bag and pulled out a stack of cream-colored paper, a wooden pencil, and her grandfather's old compass. The compass was made of brass and had tiny scratches from years of use. It still worked perfectly. "Good morning, future navigators," Professor Vex announced as he entered the room. The Altarian was 8 feet tall with crystal-like skin that sparkled under the lights. His voice sounded like wind chimes when he spoke. "Today I will announce your final project for this term." The classroom fell silent. This project would decide who graduated and who had to repeat the year. Professor Vex waved his hand, and a giant star map appeared in the air above them. "You will map the Kepler 442 system," he said. "This system is located in the outer spiral, and it has never been properly charted. There are gravitational problems there that make it difficult to study. Your job is to create accurate maps of the entire system." A Zentran student named Kale raised his hand. "Professor, how long do we have?" 6 weeks, Professor Vex replied. "You will work in teams, except for special cases where students request to work alone. Each team will be assigned a different sector of the system." Hana watched as students immediately began forming teams. The smartest aliens grouped together, combining their advanced technology. She saw her friend Mira Park join a team of 3 other humans who had brought the latest Earth-made scanning equipment. When Professor Vex called for team formations, most groups had already decided. Hana raised her hand. "Yes, Miss Kim?" the professor asked. "I would like to work alone, sir," she said quietly. The classroom erupted in laughter. Kyle turned around to look at her. "The human with the paper wants to work alone?" he said loudly. "This should be entertaining." More students laughed. A female Aquarian named Nira spoke up. "Professor, is she even using real equipment? I see paper and pencils. Are we in art class?" "That is enough," Professor Vex said, but Hana could see he looked concerned. "Miss Kim, are you certain you want to work alone? This project requires very precise measurements and advanced calculations." "Yes, sir, I am certain," Hana replied. Professor Vex hesitated, then nodded. "Very well. I will assign you Sector 7. It is one of the smaller areas, but it has some of the strangest gravitational readings we have detected." After class, Hana walked to the academy library. Other students passed by, still laughing about her equipment. She heard them making jokes about humans and their old-fashioned ways. Mira Park caught up with her in the hallway. "Hana, why did you do that? My team has 3 quantum scanners and a neural mapping interface. You could have joined us." Hana smiled at her friend. "Thank you, Mira. But I need to do this my way." "With paper?" Mira asked. "Hana, this is space navigation, not history class. You need real equipment." "This is real equipment," Hana said, patting her leather bag. "My grandfather mapped half of the solar system with tools like these." "That was 50 years ago," Mira said. "Things are different now. The aliens have technology we cannot even understand." "You cannot compete with paper and pencils." Hana sat down on a bench in the corridor. "My grandfather taught me something important, Mira. He said that the best maps come from people who really look at what they are mapping. Machines see data, humans see patterns." "But the aliens have better machines than we do," Mira argued. "Their scanners can measure things we cannot even detect." "Maybe," Hana said, "but machines can be wrong. They can miss things. My grandfather always said that the most important tool a navigator has is not a computer or a scanner. It is their eyes and their brain." That evening, Hana went to her small dormitory room. The walls were covered with maps her grandfather had drawn. There were charts of asteroid fields, planetary orbits, and gravitational flows around Jupiter. Every line was drawn by hand and every measurement was calculated with simple math. She pulled out information about the Kepler 442 system from the Academy database. The computer files showed basic data about the system's star and planets, but most of the information was marked as unreliable due to scanning interference. "Gravitational anomalies cause equipment malfunctions," she read aloud. "Electronic scanning produces inconsistent results. Quantum measurement devices show frequent errors." This made Hana smile. Her grandfather had often worked in places where electronic equipment failed. Solar storms, magnetic fields, and gravitational distortions could make the most advanced scanners useless. But a person with good eyes and basic tools could still do accurate work. She opened her grandfather's old navigation manual. The pages were yellow with age, and some of the corners were torn. But the mathematical formulas inside were still perfect. These formulas had helped humans navigate the oceans for hundreds of years before they ever went to space. Hana began preparing her equipment. She checked her compass and made sure it was calibrated correctly. She sharpened her pencils and prepared several sheets of graph paper. She reviewed the mathematical tables her grandfather had taught her to use. The next morning, she would join the expedition to Kepler 442. While her classmates loaded quantum computers and neural interfaces onto the transport ship, she would carry her leather bag with paper, pencils, and a brass compass. She thought about her grandfather, who had died 2 years ago. He had spent his life proving that simple tools and careful observation could accomplish amazing things. Now, it was her turn to continue his work. "I will not let you down, grandfather," she whispered to the hand-drawn maps on her walls. "I will show them that the old ways still work." Outside her window, the Academy's transport ships were being prepared for the journey to Kepler 442. In 3 days, they would travel to a mysterious star system that had defeated every attempt to map it properly. Hana Kim, armed with nothing but paper and pencils, was ready to try.